Hello and welcome to this episode of Own the Journey. And today we have the honor and privilege to speak with Mr. Clif Smart, the president of Missouri State University. And we can't wait to hear from you and be able to share your wisdom with the audience and some of the great things that you have done. Clif, for those that don't know you and maybe don't even know Missouri State University, tell us a little bit about the history and how you came into the university and what the university stands for.
Yeah, so Missouri State University is located in Springfield, Missouri. We've got about 26,000 students in the system. We have a two-year campus in West Plains. We have the State Fruit Experiment Station in Mountain Grove. We have a branch campus in Asia. But primarily we're focused on Springfield, and we offer programs from the bachelor's to the doctorate degree. About 85% of our students come from Missouri, and so we're really focused on serving our state. And I just finished year 11 as president of the university. That makes me the longest serving public university president in our state now.
Wow, congratulations. Well, I know that you came from the law background,
right?
So I'm super anxious to hear how you went from that into academia and how that has helped you to be more successful in your role, because I know the university has, under your tenure, has experienced explosive growth, some of the best enrollment that we've had, some of the best graduate percentages than we've ever seen. So how is all that woven together?
Yeah, so there was no master plan, Tom. I mean, it was, I had moved to Springfield 30 years ago to practice law, and practiced with kind of a boutique trial firm, strong law firm, for 15 years. It was a grind. I loved it, but it kind of wears you down. And after, becoming an owner of the firm, the three of us who were still good friends got to the point our careers were going different directions, and we thought it made sense to do that. And I became general counsel of the university 15 years ago. Thought that was my last job. Thought I was going to have a little more low-key, relaxed, normal hours kind of job. And then, 3 years into doing what I thought was my last job, the university and its board hired a president who was not a good fit, was not successful, who lasted less than a year, not as a result of misconduct, but just wasn't connected to our community, wasn't engaged, wasn't right. And while he was here that year, he chased off the provost, who's typically the number 2 person at the university. And so, as general counsel, I represented the board and negotiated his departure, the terms of that. Finished that up on a Friday afternoon, met with our board chair and said, job's done, headed home. And she said, well, Clif, we want to talk to you about something else. Would you like to be interim president? And I literally laughed out loud and said, I'm not your guy. And suggested someone else. He declined for a variety of reasons. They were back to me on Saturday. Our team really encouraged that I do it to kind of keep things together and keep things going. And talked to Gail, and my wife, and she was supportive. And so we said, okay, we'll do this for a year and then step back. And we had a great year, and we loved the job, and it was completely different than anything I'd ever done before. But here we are, 11 plus years later, still doing it.
And how do you think that the experiences you had, privately, informed and have helped you to be more successful in your role?
Yeah, and so I think, I think leading any team and that there's transferable skills there, right?
Sure.
You're leading a team and figuring out how to analyze issues and make decisions and do presentations. I think my trial lawyer background helps me on the communication side and the analysis side, but I also came into the job knowing I didn't know everything about academia. And so it was really important to hire great people who had that expertise. Day one, hired our graduate dean to be provost, and we did the job together for 11 years. And his expertise gave me credibility, because people were like, okay, you were smart enough to hire the best person for this job, and then rely on him and trust him to to make the right decisions, and we work together. And I really think that's been important for us. Hire great people. Even if they don't have exactly the right background or the typical background, and then turn them loose, support them when things don't go well. And that's what we do. That's a big piece of our success is our team.
I love it. I'm hearing servant leadership and the humility to know that you don't know everything, and then surround yourself by those brilliant people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it had to be a little bit of a shift for you going from the private practice and the public eye all the time and dealing with some of those challenges. And how's that been for you? How's it been for Gail and the family to navigate through that?
Yeah, so it came at a good time in our family. Our youngest son had just gone away to college, so we're empty nesters.
Yeah.
And that's been an important part, I think, of our success. The job of president of a university, particularly like a big university like Missouri State in a town of our size, the university is a big deal.
Yeah.
People know who the president of the university is. They are interested in everything that's going on. I joke that almost everything good that happens in Springfield has some connection to the university. And so you're president all the time, right? It's not a 40-hour-a-week job or even an 80-hour-a-week job. It's an all-the-time job.
Yeah.
People want to talk to you in church about why your football team's not winning, or they want to tell you about their daughter who graduated 3 years ago and who's now off to a great start and living in Chicago. And I like those conversations.
Right.
That's a part of the job my predecessor didn't embrace, but that's a part of the job that I love. And being kind of the face of the university and being engaged in our community, being a leader in our state, promoting the university and our economic development work and our talent work and our community work. That's a piece of what I enjoy about it.
Yeah.
You do, though, then have to kind of take breaks from that because it can wear you down.
Yeah.
And I get to do it with Gail because, we travel a lot together. We go to events together. We talk about things. She's got her own sphere of influence here. She's been a leader in the philanthropic community here.
Absolutely.
And so it's been a really nice thing for our relationship as well that we do this job together.
Really a family commitment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the ideal student for MSU. I know that over the years the programs have expanded in even in the communities as you mentioned. But when you think about recruiting and you think about targeting that ideal student, who is it? What do they look like? What's their avatar?
Yeah. So most of our students come from middle class and working class backgrounds, right? We don't have very many 1%ers that are here. There are people who want to be teachers and counselors and coaches and business leaders and managers and scientists and go back to work on the family farm or work in healthcare. It really is. We focus on helping kind of regular students start their careers and be prepared for their careers, whether that's internships, whether it's projects, in classes, whether it's study away trips, it's the curriculum that we teach. We're really focused on Missouri students, and it's typically a student that's looking for a bigger college experience. So, in our area, they're looking at the University of Missouri, they're looking at the University of Arkansas, and they're looking at us. And those three universities, all great universities, have different feels, and kids mostly know what feels good to them. So we encourage them, get on campus, talk to faculty members, see our facilities, figure out where you're going to live. The three communities are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so you're going to be here 4, 5, 6 years, particularly if you stay for a graduate program. And so figure out if you like living in Springfield. It's different than living in Columbia or Kansas City or Fayetteville. Figure out, is the program a good fit? Are you going to be able to be successful here? Are you going to be able to be connected and start your career? Will it help you get into graduate school if that's your path to be physical therapist or occupational therapist or whatever it is?
Right.
And so we really focus on that Missouri student, and we're kind of a high touch, it's kind of a big school with a small town feel. We say the same about Springfield, right? It's a big community with lots of things to do, but has that smaller community feel. And for a lot of students and families, that's what they're looking for. And we get our share.
And it clicks, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the heart of America at the end of the day. I mean, it's that those folks who make a difference in the world, that go to work, but serve the community, serve their family, make a difference in everything that's going on. It's superb. Love it. Well, when you think about how you have to recruit in today's world versus 10 years ago or whatever, I mean, social media has changed the game. Obviously from what you were saying, the culture of the campus has a huge impact on bringing the right people. It's like in business today, we want people that fit the culture even more so sometimes than the skill sets that we bring in.
I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
The culture is really important.
It's got to fit, and because everybody accelerates when the culture is healthy rather than being distracted by all the disagreements or the frustrations. Or one of the things that we share in our organization is that we have to focus on the things where we're the same, not where we're different. And I think that can be true in a lot of environments and help a lot of people. But when it comes to recruiting, it can't be easy to get the attention with all the noise in the world. So how's that changed?
Well, and I mean, it was already changing, and then the pandemic accelerated the change. Yeah. Right? And so, in the old days, the key things were you had your main print piece, often called a view book, that you would send out to promote the university, and then the goal was to do an in-person tour. Where you get that sense, is this, can a student see themselves here, and can they make connections here? But now it's so much more than that. Just in terms of how you're engaging students, so many students now expect, because it's this way in everything, right? They expect immediate responses to things. Yes. They expect things that are customized to them, right? We're living in a time where you pick out something you want on the internet and it's at your house the next day, right? And so there's that mindset, and clearly, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or other social media, you have to be engaged on social media, and you have to be engaged in a way that's meaningful. Your websites are the most important recruiting strategy, and people may not go to the home page before they may just go to the psychology department, and so that page has got to be
nailed up.
Right. And then we added a chat feature this year, and so that you can get immediate responses to most questions, and then if the chat feature can't give a response, then you get a call back or an interaction the next day. We now have a virtual tour, so you can preview things, and then there's digital marketing, right? You can geo-fence the community college graduation, because we want all the students to come to us, and then engage with them on social media directly, and a group of people that are in community college, and some high percentage of them are thinking about then getting a 4-year degree after that. And so there's lots of pieces to that. The other thing I would put into this conversation, Tom, is students today, particularly with wages going up significantly, are evaluating the return on investment, right? I mean, is a 4-year college degree going to pay off? Right. It traditionally has, right? Over the course of your lifetime, if you had a 4-year degree, you would typically earn $1 million to $1.5 million more than someone with just a high school credential. Right. But there are lots of options now. Pay scales are different. Employers are changing requirements in terms of who they hire, and so you've really also got to make the case that coming to Missouri State and getting that credential does have a return on investment and is going to pay off over the course of your life.
Oh, wow, that's big. Okay, so taking a couple of steps back, what I heard was you really have to run the university like a business when it comes to how you're running a marketing campaign and how you're reaching and making sure you're hitting the right people.
Absolutely.
You have a target.
We're a $360 million business.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of educational organizations that don't recognize that they kind of get stuck in their way. So I think you brought some good energy into the community.
Many of my employees don't recognize that either, right? So yeah, we're trying to convert them as well.
Yeah.
And it's particularly important now because, the data would show, typically in Missouri, 63% of the students graduating from high school would go on to either community college or four-year college. That's down 6 or 7% just this last year.
Wow.
Part of that may be connected to the pandemic, but I think it's a bigger question than that. I think people are evaluating, is it worth $8,000 a year to go to college?
Yeah, or more.
Or more.
Yeah. So what would you say to the student or prospective student who's trying to consider community college or a technical degree or certification or a four-year college? I mean, how do you help people navigate through those choices?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is for your long-term success, you're going to need some credential beyond high school. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're going to have to learn to work in groups and to write better and to think differently and to analyze things and to speak well. And when you're 18 years old coming out of high school, there's a lot of skill development you need to do.
Absolutely.
And so you got to begin figuring that out, right? I mean, I think for people that don't do anything after high school but just start at a $15 an hour job, or even if it's a $17 an hour job, at some point, if you're engaged and thinking about life and how you're going to support yourself, you're going to want more than that.
Right.
And so you've got to figure out how to develop those skills. And still one of the best ways is going to community college, going to a four-year school, the right one, the one that is a good fit for you and is affordable for you and makes sense based on what you're interested in doing, because you're going to, we hope, that's our goal, to help you develop those communication and writing and working together and thinking and analysis skills. And all the relationship building and connections that you're making, both within the university, whether you're in Greek life or you're playing sports or you're leading a student organization, and then through internships and student research projects, all of a sudden you start figuring out a work ethic and figure, and so we still think that's meaningful, but we're also going to have to do a better job telling people about that. We're going to have to do a better job maybe breaking it up into pieces. Maybe you don't have to go 4 years in a row. Maybe you can go 2 years at community college, get into the workforce, and then come back and pick up a certificate or two. Yeah. And then 10 years in, you get a degree. We've got to make things stackable. And learning continues your whole life. Yeah. And you think of all the changes we've seen in the last 10 years, you've got to keep learning, and we've got to be in the game of that continual learning, not just a 4 years with us and you're done, or 4 years plus a graduate degree and you're done. We've got to be engaged with you your whole life.
I love that. And so really there's a couple of different educational cycles that you're taking people through. In the very beginning, it's helping them to identify what's right, and then there's the experience itself. And I think that so much of what you learn in college is not actually like classroom style stuff. It's the experience that you're talking about that helps you get prepared for business and ready to go.
Yeah, so if you're taking a computer science program from us, it's not so much important that you're learning a particular program. It's that you're learning how to manage any program, right? Because the program's going to be different in 3 years. It's certainly going to be different in 5 years. It is learning how to learn, learning how to communicate, learning how to write, learning how to work with others, learning how to analyze programs. And we give you a framework and help you get started in both real world experiences as well as classroom experiences. And then whatever you're faced, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't go to college to be a university president. I had a traditional undergraduate degree and a law degree, and all of those things that I learned, plus my real life experiences, have enabled me to do a very different kind of job.
Yeah, I love it. That's so good. Well, you talked about the investment required to get a degree. Obviously, student debt is a challenge all over the world. It's in the news. We hear about it.
Yeah.
What would you say, both on the side of students that are dealing with some of those choices and decisions, but also what can businesses do to help the students and the university navigate through some of those challenges more successfully?
Yeah, really, really great question, and they're kind of pieces of that. So
Sure.
let me kind of break that down a little bit. First of all, a lot of the student debt that you hear about is special graduate program kind of debt. Like someone borrowed $600,000 to go to med school
Right.
at Vanderbilt University, right? And it
Right.
cost $100,000 a year. So on average, about 2/3 of students at Missouri State graduate with some debt. About a third graduate with no debt.
Okay.
The 2/3 that have debt, we are working to bring it down through a variety of ways, but the average debt's about $23,000. And so, you think about, well, would I borrow $23,000 to be able to make $1.5 million more over my life? That's a reasonable investment.
It is.
Now, what's not a reasonable investment would be to say, well, I'm going to be an elementary school teacher, or I want to be a social worker, and so I'm going to make about $40,000 a year. So I'm going to go, pick on my brother's school, I'm going to go to Vanderbilt, where the cost is about $80,000 a year. That's probably not a good investment if you've got to borrow money to do that, because how are you ever going to pay that back?
Right.
Making $40,000 a year. And so as long as you're taking reasonable debt and are going to have a career to pay it back, I think it's a reasonable investment. But B, we want to make sure that we're helping our students make good decisions on that, right? And so maybe instead of taking, if you qualify for $10,000 in debt loan,
Yeah.
year one, well, could you manage on 5, right? So if you work during the summer, if you work during class, probably 80% of our students are working while they're going to school.
Mm-hmm.
If your parents can support you to some extent, don't take the maximum debt. Just take the debt that you need, right? So that you're not graduating with $50,000, you're graduating with $20,000. Again, more manageable. And so that strategy is one of the ways we've been able to bring down our average debt from like $26,000 to $23,000 over the last several years, even though the cost of tuition goes up.
It goes up, yeah.
And then a part of it is making sure you're picking a school that you can afford to go to, right? And so public schools cost different amounts, private schools cost different amounts. And it's really critical for students to evaluate that after scholarship, after grants, how much are you really paying?
Right.
And so, are you really paying $4,000 a year, or are you paying $40,000 a year? And if you're going to borrow that money, you need to be thoughtful about that, because then you're going to have that debt, maybe for years.
What I heard from you that I don't think I've heard from anyone in the traditional media and in a lot of the circles that I've run is that it really needs to be approached as if you were making an investment in anything else. If you were going to put $4,000 into your 401k, and it was going to go down in value, it would be a bad investment.
Exactly.
And the same is true in your education. If you can make that investment and know that it's going to pay off in the future, then it's good.
And I think that's what students and parents want, right? What's the return on investment for this? If my child, or if I as a student borrow $20,000, well, right now I'm making $25,000 or $30,000 a year. Is that credential that I'm going to earn? Mm-hmm. Does that then allow me to go to a job that makes $60,000 a year?
Yeah.
Or as a occupational therapist, to make $120,000 a year? Well, all of a sudden, there's a return on that investment that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So what do you think the business community can do to help students in the university to kind of navigate through some of these challenging situations?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are beginning to do it now. And I think we're going to see more and more people working and going to school at the same time. Mm-hmm. So maybe it takes you 6 years instead of 4, or maybe you're going back to finish up something after you stopped out. And what we're seeing from Bass Pro, from O'Reilly, from City Utilities, from Silver Dollar City, from Amazon, from a whole slew of employers is that's becoming a standard benefit that we will help our employees go to school. Kind of a tuition assistance program. Mm-hmm. And you can, typically it's $4,000 to $6,000 a year. And so all of a sudden, helps Amazon recruit people, right? Yeah. So if you can work at the Amazon factory and you're making $17 or $19 or $20 an hour, but one of your benefits is you can also go to college and take 1 or 2 classes, because you probably can't work at the Amazon factory your whole life, right?
Yeah.
It wears you down.
Right.
And you're going to want to do something else, and so helps Amazon. Maybe it keeps you for 5-6 years because that's how you're funding college, instead of keeping you for 6 months and then you go work somewhere else. And so we're really seeing that the employee tuition assistance piece is becoming a standard benefit for major employers. Now what we've got to do is make that convenient, right? Yeah. We've got to make sure they can take online classes if they need to. We've got to make sure that the right classes are at the right time for them. We've got to make sure that we work with the employer to bill them, as opposed to billing the employee, who then has to get reimbursed. We've got to make it convenient to sign up. We've got to make sure they have the skills to be successful. And so there's work on our part, but no, we're working on that right now, because this is a way higher ed is changing.
Yeah, well, I think the business community has to change with that as well. So from a small business perspective, not the Amazons of the world, how do we engage with the university to learn whether it's an internship program or tuition assistance program, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's been hard, right? We hadn't been very good at this. Here we are, we've got, we got 2,300 employees in Springfield, and you're thinking, well, do I engage with the computer science department? Do I engage with the College of Business? If I want to hire, a communications person, what is it, a different college, and who do we call? And it's been really hard, and we haven't done a very good job on that. And so what we're working on right now is to be able to roll out before the end of this year is a one-stop shop. Nice. Where employers can contact us and say, we want to hire X, we want to recruit interns, we'd love a class to do a project for us, we want whatever it is, that there's an easy place for you to come to us, and then we go to the 400 connections to figure out how to help you and who you need to interact with. And so we're working to do that and get to a point where we're a better partner with businesses of all sizes.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and I think, we talk about talent attraction and retention, obviously, which feeds right into that. So talk to us about 2 things. One, how does that impact the university? Because I know you deal with the challenges as much as anyone. And then how can we as a community and small businesses and universities work together to solve these problems? What's the best way for us to speed that up?
Yeah, so let me first say, I'm in the hunt for talent as well, right? Yeah. I'm one of the biggest 10 employers in town, and so I've got 2,200 full-time workers and another 1,200 part-time workers, and so it's getting harder for all of us to recruit. And so just like you, we've increased our starting pays now at least $15 an hour for our hourly workers. We're changing our benefits. We're trying to be more flexible in terms of particularly people that are not student facing, to allow them to work some or part-time remotely. We're looking at all of those kinds of benefit things. And we have a really good healthcare plan, and we've got a pension system, and we've got great days off, et cetera, et cetera. But then another thing I stress is when you're working at the university, you're making a difference in people's lives, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a custodian or a secretary or a faculty member, you're going to engage with students, and you have an opportunity to make a difference in someone's lives, and you're involved in an enterprise where all sorts of interesting and fun things are happening that you can plug in and be a part of. And so we're working on the talent attraction too. I think together, the more we're able to facilitate students connecting with all sizes of businesses here, and having hands-on real interaction, whether it's a result of a classroom project they're doing for you, or whether it's a result of part-time work, or whether it's a result of internship work, the more our students are connected into the community, the more they're likely to stay.
Yeah.
And then the more we work to make the community better, the more they're likely to stay. And so,
absolutely,
that's why I'm really excited about the idea of Commons expansion and the Jordan Creek, uncovering that, because if we transform downtown, immediately it's going to be easier to keep students that are graduating here to working here.
Yeah, and so one of the pieces of the nuggets that I took out of what you said is that it's like so many other areas for small businesses, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So by having this new program that you're talking about, the small business can get in touch, can get that engagement going, and create that kind of two-way conversation that's always churning and helping to manage that talent.
Exactly. I mean, it's always easier for you to make a hire if somebody knows to some extent what the work is and what working for J-Mark would be like, right? So, if you just go to the career fair and are recruiting people cold, you may or may not be successful. But all of a sudden, if you've worked with a marketing class in the College of Business, or an IT class, and then people have learned to connect with you and get a sense of what you do, and then you hire one or two people to be interns, you've got a great opportunity to then recruit that guy as a full-time worker, and who's excited to work at your company.
Yeah. Well, we have firsthand experience with that in our organization. We've got some good graduates that work for us. So, so we hear a lot about the recession that's coming and some of the challenges associated with that. What's your take? And two, what do you think that has in store for us in terms of the university, what that means for people being able to go to school and businesses? I mean, it's all kind of crystal ball, but.
Yeah, I mean, you start thinking about where we're just coming out of a pandemic, although COVID is still with us, right? I had COVID 4 weeks ago. So, we know it's still with us. We're coming out of a pandemic. We have the highest inflation we've had in 40 years, which again impacts price, right? So now people are evaluating
everything.
Right. Well, okay, it was, $200 a credit hour, and now it's $220. And what does that mean, right? Because stuff costs more for us, just like it does for everyone. And so inflation is a huge challenge right now, and it factors into the whole financial analysis we're talking about. Typically, a recession is often positive for higher ed, because if people are laid off, they often use that time to up their skills.
Makes sense.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm going to go back and get a 12-hour certificate. I'm going to go back and finish that degree. And now I'm more marketable when things open up. So oftentimes that can help us, but I don't know that we've ever been in a time where we're finishing up a pandemic that changed everything, and we have tremendous inflation, and now we're looking at, well, what is an economic downturn going to do, and do all these other things change that? And if we're not delivering our programs in ways that people can access them, then they may not come back. Right. And so we've got to change and adapt just as everyone is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the technological changes that have happened obviously would have accelerated through the pandemic. A couple of years ago, if somebody said, "Well, we need to have a Zoom meeting," you wouldn't know what to do. But now you know exactly what to do. So I think when it comes to online learning, what you're saying is just like a business, you have to adapt and you have to meet meet your customer, the student, where they are.
One of the good things for us that came out of the pandemic is we have a much bigger ability to offer online classes or to offer hybrid classes where a part of it is online and a part of it could be Zoom or part of it could be in person. And whereas people thought that some people before thought that learning wasn't as good or thought they didn't know how to do it and weren't willing to learn how to do it,
right.
Either give it or take it. And the pandemic changed all that. And so now we're, given that we had to offer all of our classes for 3 months online, well, now everybody has some ability to do it. And so now we can go into it saying, well, the worst of the pandemic is behind us. Let's offer it based on market demand. And so if that means, hey, people want to take, great example, we had a master's program in social work that maybe 30 or 40 people would take. It was all seated. As soon as we put it online, because all those people are employed that are trying to get
and
their
busy.
master's degree and busy, it went to 200 people are in that program, right? So let the market drive the modality, right? And so if you're offering a general business degree, we offer it both in person or online, or you can take a mix of classes based on what you need. Let the market drive that as opposed to the preference of the teacher, right?
Yeah.
And so we're probably a quarter of our classes are now online, whereas before the pandemic it would have been more like 15%.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hear agility in your organization, just like you have to have in
Well,
small.
we're working to get to that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I know one of the big challenges that you have to navigate through is working with, for us, Jefferson City, the state legislature, and funding and all the aspects of that. Something that you probably hadn't had a huge amount of experience with prior to stepping into your role. Talk to us a little bit about how that shapes both what you have to do, what decisions you can make, and then what you're able to produce or facilitate at the university.
Yeah, so a big part of what I do, sometimes people ask, what do you do as president? Well, a big part of what I do is advocacy for the university. And so a chunk of that is in Jefferson City or connected to the people that go to Jefferson City. And a chunk of it is in Washington, D.C. Because there are decisions made in Washington, D.C. that impact us. Senator Blunt, for example, was instrumental in getting year-round Pell, which means for kids whose families make under a certain level, there was no grant to help them go to college in the summer. Well, oftentimes you would lose a lot of them because they go home, they work, and they're helping their families, and it's harder for them to come back.
Right.
But having the ability to fund college through the Pell program in the summer means more of them continue and more of them finish. And so we were engaged in that conversation with him and explaining and advocating for that. In Jeff City, it is directly for appropriations, and so about 35% of our budget comes from tax dollars, comes from Jeff City. That's why it costs less to go to a public university than a private university.
Yep.
The state is supplementing the cost of that because they view it as valuable that citizens of Missouri have credentials and can make more money and have more productive lives. And so we this year, for the first time ever, we went over $100 million that we get from the state. And that's a little over 35% of our budget. And so we are regularly engaging with particularly our representatives and state senators that are on the budget and appropriations committees. We're engaging with the governor in terms of his budget, the commissioner of higher education, trying to figure out who's likely to be the next governor and engaging with him or her. And they help fund capital programs on both the state and federal level. And so one of the things that actually helped me in this job is having lived in Springfield for almost 20 years before I became president, I knew a lot of the players.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you didn't have to, start from ground zero. People knew me and I knew them, and then we worked to develop those relationships. And people like Jay Wasson and Lincoln Huff and Roy Blunt have been absolutely critical in supporting the university. And I think a piece of that is that they know me and trust me and know that we're doing the right things, and it's not, we're not brainwashing kids to be anything or not. But it's helping them get started and on their careers, and that support at both the state and federal level has been absolutely critical to our success as a university.
Yeah. Well, I love the cyclical nature of it. I mean, really, you're talking about the state, investing large amounts of money into the future of the state. So, and that's why it's so important to try to keep those people here in our community that are helping to continue.
Exactly. And I mean, guys, it matters who we send to Jeff City in Washington, D.C. You would think, doesn't matter what party you're in, you would think that supporting higher education and supporting K-12 education, that's a nonpartisan issue. Well, we all know that's now not so much. We've worked really hard to have good friends in both Democrat and Republican elected officials. We have great support for the university from our elected officials in both parties, but you have to work at that.
Sure.
And they have to we work for them to know, hey, here's what we're teaching. Here are our programs. Here where our students are going to work afterwards. 75% of them stay and work in Missouri. And so, you show and what they're studying and what their success and what would make a difference if we were able to renovate this facility, that we could expand this program or do better education. It's a continual, particularly with term limits, it's a continual work to make sure people are comfortable with what we're doing and are supporting in what we're doing, whether you're very liberal or very conservative or anywhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, very much a return on investment conversation all over again, except it's playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's not quite as short. Yeah, I love it. Well, as we wrap up, Cliff, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's some of the best advice that you ever received in your life?
I don't even remember who told me this, but I've gotten so that I share it. But it's whatever job you're doing, even if it's not the perfect job for you, even if it's not the job you even wanted, do it to the best of your ability, right? Without complaining. Embrace it, do a great job, because that will help you get the job you want. Right? That, whether it's within that organization or company or somewhere else. And I think students today need to hear that, because sometimes there's this mindset that you graduate from college and I'm ready to be the vice president or CEO. And I'm like, well, okay, but do the job you have right now really well, and people will notice you and you'll have other opportunities.
Yeah. On the journey.
On the journey.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Cliff, congratulations. Cheers to you. And look forward to hearing more from you. Congrats on owning your journey.
I enjoyed our conversation.
Very much. Thank you.